Aloha and welcome to another episode of Financial Education with Hawaii Central Federal Credit Union. I'm Amber Millsap, Community Relations Officer with Hawaii Central, and today we have with us again Herb Hussey. Thank you so much for joining us. He's been here a few times and he's been at this, what he does as a retirement planner with Windward Financial. He's been at this for many years. I think, 30 years, Herb?
33 years.
Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? I mean, those viewers that are joining us for the first time.
Retirement planning is a very important area for many people because it can be complex, and a lot of the areas are things where we cannot make mistakes.
Well, I understand you do have a presentation today for our viewers at home on Medicare and Social Security.
I do.
And many, many pointers to share with us. And we can go ahead and bring up that first slide.
One of the things that's important to understand about Medicare is that it is specifically a insurance plan governed by the United States federal government with the purpose of providing payments to doctors who are in the United States. It is not something that covers people outside the United States or things like that. So there are limitations to Medicare. If you're aging in and you're retiring in Hawaii, you're going from traditional HMSA or Kaiser, now you're in a federal plan with Medicare. And it can be confusing, and that's why it's important for people, I think, to spend time talking to someone who can guide them and take care of them, because the transition points are important. If they get it right, it's fine. If it don't, it's very complicated. For example, Medicare has 4 parts. Okay, Part A, you age in at 65. Part B, you enter Part B if you are losing coverage. Okay, and you have already applied for Part A. So 2 things have to be there. But Part B has a premium, a monthly premium that you pay. If you do not enroll right away, okay, and if, let's say you took a year off and you just went off and did something else, like you traveled around the world for a year and you came back, when you come back and they say you should have applied for Medicare Part B last year, the end result of that is that there's an additional permanent penalty.
I know we talked a little bit about the limitations with travel. Are there any other limitations? Or did you want to bring up your next slide?
Why don't we continue through the slides and things will come up.
Yeah, okay.
First of all, Medicare will not cover you if you travel outside the United States. The only 2 exemptions are if you are traveling between Alaska and the lower 48 without delay, and that's actually there. And if you get sick or need medical help as you're traversing through Canada, you can go to a Canadian doctor. But aside from that, okay, you do not have coverage in Canada. The other exemption is if you live in the United States, but your residence, you live closer to a doctor in a foreign country than in the United States, okay, then you can go to a doctor in a foreign country. So if we think about that is for people that live in Canada and live on the border with Mexico. It doesn't apply to Hawaii.
So you said, though, Alaska is one of the exemptions.
If you're traversing between Alaska and the lower 48.
Does that include if you're on a cruise between Alaska and Washington State, say?
The cruise issue is interesting. It depends upon how far you are and the ship. So one of the things that I strongly suggest to my clients when they travel is make sure that they have trip insurance. Make sure they know if they are covered.
How much does one of these trip insurance policies run?
It's not terribly expensive because you have insurance just for the days that you're traveling. And specifically what you're looking for is a type of insurance, not if you lose your bag, but if you got sick. And what you want to do is have insurance where they will get you in touch with a local doctor and then help you to evacuate, come back to the United States where you can receive care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So evacuation, that has to be on the plan.
It should be in the plan, an evacuation provision, where they actually will bring you back to the United States.
I know you had shared a while back about one of your clients, right?
Yeah.
Was it China?
They went to China, and well, the thing, if you go in and you look at what the State Department puts out about travel in China, you see things like they will say, be very cautious that you don't have coverage there, so you want to have your own insurance. You may not have the same level of care that you have in the United States. There may not be ambulances that will take you to the hospital. So it's a matter of adapting. It's a matter of adapting to a different time and a different situation. If you move and you relocate to another country, you may think, well, they have a nationalized health plan. I'm going to automatically join. You might want to check, because you may find that because you are just walking in as an expat, you may not qualify for their medical plan. You have not contributed taxes to their medical system.
Oh, so you couldn't even purchase one?
You have to purchase a separate plan.
Is that something that you can purchase within the United States?
You would be going and
you'd
be looking for a medical plan that can be used in, say, Spain or Italy. So you'd be looking for that.
Oh, okay. Prior to leaving.
You would want to have it prior to leaving, because if you go there and you don't have a plan and you get sick, then we're in real difficulty.
Well, you might have to pay out of pocket then.
Yes. And it's not unusual if you are a U.S. citizen traveling abroad and you are sick, that you'll find that they will want to be paid first before they treat you. You may have your travel limited. You may not be able to leave the country. You cannot walk into a smaller country and get them to spend thousands of dollars on care and walk away. They are not going to permit that. So
something to think about, definitely.
Yeah, think about this. Think about this. Think about it. It's important. It's important because when you're over there and you need care, then it becomes a crisis. One of the issues I've seen this happen many times is when they get overseas and they need help, the cost of the care can be such that they don't have enough money on their credit card or their debit card. They have to go liquidate an IRA. The problem is they're over there. That IRA and the forms for it are over here.
Slow vote.
You may not be able to get your money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's complicated. People have a tendency to think, well, I can just travel around the United States. It's all the same. Yeah, but you're not in the United States anymore.
Well, I hear even within the United States, certain Medicare plans maybe are
you're outside
geographically.
Of the network. You're outside of the network. For example, and it's a common thing. If you are a Kaiser member, you're supposed to go to a Kaiser hospital or a Kaiser clinic. You can't just walk into any doctor and say, hey, you know what? You got to take me. I'm not a Kaiser doctor. I can't. So you have to plan for these things.
Even within domestic travel.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you go to a place where that's not where your physician is, one of the issues is not only will they be able to care for me, but can they get your medical records? If you have been injured and hurt and you're in serious condition and you're there and they don't know anything about your medical history, that creates a real serious problem. They don't know who you are. So
sounds like
there's a lot.
There are several limitations.
There's a lot. And that's why traveling, particularly for retirees, is something that they have to be thoughtful about. Because if you are traveling and you become injured, hurt, infirmed, you need emergency care, you need medical care, how do you get that?
Well, I know you have another presentation. Were there any last pointers you wanted to?
Let's see the rest of the slides on this.
So if you move outside of the United States,
Right.
the coverage is forfeit. When you come back into the country, can you like reapply for Medicare?
Sure. You
But then does that penalty kick in?
it
or?
may.
Okay.
It may. Again, we don't have a national medical plan for the United States. We have national insurance plans. So if you're moving from place to place, you want to make sure is my coverage still good? If I'm outside of that coverage area, when I come back, do I still have it? So it requires being thoughtful. The last thing I suggest to people is just wanna around and try to figure it out. No, that's not the thing to do.
Okay. Next.
Yeah, if you're living outside the United States, you need a separate plan. Limited access to hospital facilities. Yes. For example, I think it's Thailand where if you're an expat, you can only go to certain hospitals. You cannot go to the others because they don't have the infrastructure and the money to be supportive of people that walk in there and say, I need a heart operation and you guys have to take care of me. They go, no, we're not. No, we're not. And we're not going to provide that service, that very expensive service for someone who is an expat. So if you're going to live somewhere, you have to research, you have to know what you're getting into. It is very much an important issue as if we're looking at buying a home overseas or banking, transportation, education, and then medical care. All of those things come together. So,
just like learning a new culture.
You're learning a new culture. The misunderstandings occur is because though the law has changed, the population is different. As I was describing earlier, Medicare started in 1965. You age into Medicare at age 65. So if you were in that first group that joined Medicare in 1965 and you were 65, you were born in 1900. And that's usually a shock. People don't realize that. The first group that went into it, had to have been born in 1900 or earlier. If they're born if they were 7 years old, they're born in 1895. What that means is that the person who went in at 65 years old graduated from high school in 1917. When the Great Depression starts in the 1930s, they're 30 years old. At the time of Pearl Harbor, they're in their 40s. The Beatles are on TV when they're 63 years old. They're not the great generation. They're the parents of the great generation. It's them. The reason that's an important issue is that when they look at that group who were born in 1900, the life expectancy for the men was under 50. Same thing for women. So when they're 65 years old in 1965, they're way past the life expectancy for this population group. It helps people to understand that the intention of Medicare wasn't to provide medical coverage for the young. It was to provide medical coverage for the very elderly of the population. Today, a 65-year-old retiree can be traveling, they could be walking the Great Wall of China, they could be going on safaris. So the population has changed as people live longer, but the law hasn't.
Well, I think you said you also had a slide presentation prepared on Social Security.
Yes, let's bring that up.
Some more pointers for us?
Yes. Next slide, please. Social Security, the thing to understand about it is that it is not a system where you are paying money into the system for yourself. When you pay money into the system, it's for those that are already retired. Okay, so when you work, you're putting money into the system. The people that are retired, that's what they are receiving. So what happens with Social Security is that there are three important dates. Age 62, that's the earliest you can start to receive Social Security. 66, 67, depending on your birthday, that's called the FRA, or your full retirement age. And then up here around 70, that's when you kind of max out. The key thing is to know when your full retirement age is. Because if you go earlier than your full retirement age, what will happen is that there will be a penalty. So if you think of the full retirement age as 100% of your benefits, if you start earlier, all right, there's going to be a reduction in that because you're starting too soon, right? The thing about that penalty is that the penalty goes all the way through for the rest of your life. The penalty doesn't stop when you hit your full retirement age. It continues.
Well, in essence, you've stretched out your Social Security benefits, right?
Correct.
It does seem kind of, I guess, logical that there would be a penalty.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
The idea is, can you live with that penalty, right?
Can you live with that? Can you live with that? Can you live with that? And when I've worked with clients who want to start it earlier, what I tell them is this: understand two things. If you start earlier, there's a penalty. Okay, that penalty is going to go for as long as you live. Second, if you start earlier, there's an income ceiling. Because the law is not designed that as soon as you hit 62, you continue to work and you get Social Security benefits and make money. No, what you're supposed to do when you have Social Security and you started it sooner is that you've left the workforce. You've left the workforce maybe because you're sick. Okay, I have a client who is in a care home, and she started Social Security when she was 64. Because she was sick and she was out of the workforce. So in that case, that penalty was understandable, but she needed every dollar. She was sick, and she was not going to go to work again. So that penalty on having too much income wasn't going to apply to her. Okay, so if you start earlier, there is a lifetime penalty and there is an income ceiling. That income ceiling amount changes from time to time. Right now, if I remember correctly, it's around $17,000. So if you receive your Social Security early and you go out and you make $50,000 from a job, right? Your income is such that you probably have to give back most or all of what you got for Social Security, because it's supposed to be dollar for dollar over that $17,000.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and that's why people have to think very carefully about that. So what I suggest to my clients is, don't make this decision on your own. Call Social Security. Go down to their office. Make an appointment. Sit down with them and explain, this is what I'm going to do. Am I right on this? If you are unsure and you can't physically get there, go online and make an online appointment, and they'll call you up and say, and we're going to have this conversation. And the guy will say, I'm looking at your work record. You have this. This is what it's going to be. And you can tell them, if I start here, is there a penalty? No. If I start here, there is. Yeah, there is. So start here. Don't make these decisions on your own. Just like Medicare, you have to be right. We cannot be close. We have to be right.
I saw it said 66 or 67 in your presentation.
Depending on your date of birth.
So where's that cutoff in the year?
If you go online and you register for Social Security, you type in your Social Security number and all of that stuff, they'll tell you when your full retirement age is. But that date is dependent upon your date of birth. Okay. In my case, it was 66 point something months. Okay. But yeah, you want to know exactly when it is. Okay. You don't want to start earlier than that, unless you really, really have to.
Unless you want the penalty.
Because you're going to take the penalty. You're going to take them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing where Medicare and Social Security merge is that Medicare is administered by the Social Security Administration. In fact, so Social Security is here. Medicare is actually a part of it. And if you have Medicare and you have that Part B premium, that's oftentimes paid for through your Social Security benefit. So when you get a check, they take that cost out. So it's like that. The other part that's in the Social Security Administration is Medicaid, which is long-term care for indigents. So Social Security Administration within the United States is a very important entity. It covers three very important things. Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
Well, thank you. Did you want to go to the next slide?
Sure. Social Security, you have to work 40 quarters, which, if you think about it, that's 10 years. Okay. If you don't have it, You may not qualify. I don't know about a buyback arrangement, all right? But you want to track that. And when you go online and you actually look at your work history, they'll trace it all the way back to the first time that you got money, and that's there. Next. Okay. People tend to think Social Security is not that important. It's equivalent to about $600,000 of a lifetime benefit. If you figure your Social Security payment is $2,200, $2,300, $2,400, that's $30,000 a year. Mm-hmm. If you live 20 years, that's $600,000. So we want to be right about this. Yeah. That's $600,000 just for having worked and being part of the system. So that's why people they don't care about it. No, you should care a lot. Mm-hmm. You should care a lot. It's about $600,000. Think about it. $2,500 a month. That's $30,000 a year times 20 years. $600,000. Mm-hmm. If you live longer, it's more.
Next slide.
Benefits can increase over time. Cost of living adjustment. Periodically, the payout will change. It'll go up depending on the calculations they do, and that's important too, because the cost of living does go up. So yes, your Medicare benefits can increase. You can start your benefits at your full retirement age, mm-hmm. 66 to 67. There's no penalty, and you can continue to work. So that's an arrangement where you're continuing to work, put money to the system, and still qualify for Social Security. Mm. Yes, that's the best, because then it's like, I'm not going to say a free check, but it's an additional source of money that's coming in addition to the income you have from your job.
Where you can kind of take it easy, maybe work part-time.
Or you could say, I'm going to give myself a pay raise. And why are you able to do that? Well, it's because you have at least 10 years of work from before. Mm-hmm. And now that's being paid to you because of your age. So one of the things that is important for people to think about when they retire is, if I'm happy at my work and I enjoy it and I like it, when I hit my full retirement age and I continue to work, I have my job there and I have that income, plus I have my Social Security, and both are there. Mm-hmm. Yes, the next slide, please. Issues with starting early. We talked about that. That's the one where you're going to take a penalty, and mm-hmm. you have an income ceiling. So we want to really think about whether or not you want to do that. That's why my suggestion is have a conversation with them, mm-hmm. and actually say, this is what we're going to do. And they can tell you, if you start early, this is what it is. But sometimes situations are such that people have to. Mm-hmm. They're ill, they're sick. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as long as they understand the consequence. That's the key thing.
Well, we're going to have to wrap up soon here. Are there any main pointers you want to make prior to wrapping up on Social Security?
The only thing I would say is have a conversation with them. Talk to people that are knowledgeable about Social Security and Medicare, because this is one area where it's very important to be correct.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks so much, Herb, for joining us again. It's always a pleasure having you here. You come with great knowledge.
Thank you.
Lots of wisdom there. And to our viewers at home, I want to thank you for joining us for another episode here of Financial Education with Hawaii Central, and also to Olelo Community Media in the background for everything that they do. We appreciate that. And with that, I want to say mahalo and ahui ho.